it really just takes my breath away that you're all sitting here at such nice, beautiful tables. It looks wonderful. So welcome to the League of Women Voters Seminole County Hot Topics for today. Before we get started, please rise and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. If we have any elected officials or candidates in the room, I'd like them to stand up and introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with Jim Turnip because he's already standing. He's our photographer.
I got my camera, so I have two jobs. I guess I'm an elected official. I'm the city commissioner for Altamont Springs, and honored to have just been re-elected with no opponents.
By acclamation.
Right, there you go. So they're stuck with me for another 2 years, and you are too, because I've just also been assigned to photography for the league. So therefore, if I get in your face with a flash, sorry, but and if you don't want your picture taken, just wave me off or something. But I'll be running around with the camera.
Thank you. Autumn?
Hi, I'm Autumn Garrick. I only have one job, but it's countywide. I'm a school board member. I'm finishing out my first year, so 10 months in, and proud to represent our school.
Are there any other officials or candidates? Okay, good, wonderful. So I'm going to save the announcements for the end. I was so proud of myself that I did this little PowerPoint that kept scrolling through while we were up here. I don't know that it could be seen so well from the back, but we have an awful lot of things happening in October, and I just couldn't figure out a good way to get all that information out to you. Aside from the fact to tell you to look on Sunday when your newsletter hits your email, because it will be just chock full of all the things that are coming up. But now it is my real pleasure to introduce a relatively new friend to me, the first vice president of our league, but also a member of the Floridians for National Popular Vote. And so Valerie's going to switch hats and wear that hat for us this morning and share with us what it is that National Popular Vote is about and how it works, and then answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you. All right, and while I'm talking, like a lot of people, I can tend to forget to keep the microphone close to my mouth, so just remind me on that if that occurs. I'm going to put my slides to come up and make sure that's going to work. There you are. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, and the second thing I want to do is to remind everybody, it's easy to forget, please check your phone and make sure it's on silent. You don't want to be embarrassed to have your phone ringing in the middle. It won't bother me that much. I always used to tease the students when I was teaching at UCF, and their phone would go off, and I'd go, that'll be $5, please. And, at first they thought I was serious, so. And then they found out. Okay, so let me explain your handout. If you didn't get one, there were a few left at the front. I tried not to waste paper and be close. On the front of it, where it says Floridians for National Popular Vote at the top, that is the bill. That is the whole thing. It is an interstate compact, and so it is completely the same from state to state. So it is not a word can be changed, and so it is passed just like this. So you have it completely in front of you. On the back, so that if you are a note-taking person, I did not print out all the slides, but I basically have quick points from each one of the slides on the back of your sheet. And you have some more space to make your own notes should you desire to do so. Okay? So you have a handout that I hope will be helpful to you, and take it home. All right. So I think that is it as far as housekeeping before we get started. All right, Kathy, what am I doing wrong to advance it? This is Kathy's computer, so okay. Okay, just click there. Okay, got it. All right, I can do that. All right, when I'm learning about a new subject, it's useful to me to have kind of the umbrella of it, even if I don't have all the details, if I have like an overview. So that's what I have given you here. So this is national popular vote in a nutshell. And if I'm going to read it for you, but then if it doesn't make sense right away, don't worry, because we're going to unpack it as we go forward. But to me, it's just something you can come back to, one sentence you can read and kind of, put it together. So when this bill is enacted, notice I'm speaking about it in the positive forecasting, okay? That state, whichever state it is, that state's electoral college electors will be awarded to the candidate pair winning the U.S. national popular vote, not just a popular vote in Florida or in whichever state we're talking about, but the national popular vote rather than that state's popular vote. Okay? So that's the nutshell piece. So let's go on. Perfect. Okay. So how is it in Florida right now? In Florida, as in 48 of the other states, we have what's called a winner-take-all law, which means that if 51%, we do the popular vote, this is for the U.S. president, and of course it's a candidate pair because there's a vice president with that too. The candidate pair who wins the popular vote in Florida are awarded all the electors. So even if it's only 51% for candidate A takes all of the electors for Florida or for whichever state we are talking about. It is currently the same in 48 states, only Nebraska and Maine do it differently, and I won't go down that rabbit hole. It has not been this way forever. These laws were enacted in the late 1800s, and the history of that again is more than we want to go into today. But just know that it's not been that way since the 1700s when we had our original Constitution. So this current winner-take-all method is not in the U.S. Constitution. It was never mentioned in the Constitutional Convention or in the Federalist Papers. So the people who say, well, we want to keep it the same as our founding fathers, well, the founding fathers didn't talk about winner-take-all laws at all, right? So the U.S. Constitution also gives exclusive control to the states to say what method they want to choose to award their electoral college votes. And it's right in Article 2, Section 1. Now, I'm not a constitutional scholar, okay, but I do know that that's where it is. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof, so it's talking about the state's legislature, all right? They may direct a number of electors, and then it goes on to say how many, it's the number equal to representatives and senators, and that's why we have 30 in Florida now, because we've grown a bit. All right. All right. These winner-take-all laws are really the problem, right? You all have heard of battleground or swing states before, right? And these number of states are actually dwindling. Florida used to be a battleground state, but now we are not. And so what is happening is that we have then what is referred to as flyover states, because the candidates just fly over them without stopping to do any campaign visits or to discuss anything, or spectators, because they're standing there watching what's happening in the battleground states or swing states. Right, those battleground states get almost all of the campaign visits. You know, we got a ton of campaign visits in the last election, but just watch and see, we will get very few this time, right? Okay, because we are no longer considered a battleground state. Voters in states which are reliably red or blue, you might think California, they standardly will vote blue or Democratic. Someplace like Texas will of course standardly vote red or Republican, right? But voters in those states, which is 80% of the people across the country, are less likely to vote because they will see, especially if they are of the other party than what their state tends to vote for, because they'll say, why should I bother to vote? My vote's not going to count, okay? They feel disenfranchised, right? So this is one of the problems which we want to correct with national popular vote. Thank you. Okay, good. All right. So another aspect of how winner-take-all laws are a problem is when you look at these battleground states, and we've all seen it, when the margin of the vote in that particular state is not very large, then the candidate who is not getting those electoral votes gets very annoyed, and there's audits, there's recounts, there's lawsuits, there's chaos that ensues after the election. So this state-by-state winner-take-all system regularly enables a few thousand votes in a small number of states to decide the presidency, thereby fueling post-election controversies and threatening the country's stability. Because I don't know about you all, but this is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. We just did the Pledge of Allegiance. I love America, and I love that we are a beacon of democracy to places around the world. But I hate it when, after the election, when we have all this squabbling and lawsuits, and I think to the rest of the world it must look like we don't know what we're doing. And how come, if we're supposed to be this beacon of democracy, how come we can't get this figured out? So, you see what I have written under there. We don't elect a president of the United States, we elect a president of the battleground states, because the rest of us are just standing around as spectators watching what's going on in the battleground states. We have had 5 of the 46 presidents that Biden is number 46, so 5 of the 46 presidents have come into office without winning the popular vote. And that's more than 10% right there. And I think we can both name the 2 that have happened recently, and the other 3 were back in the 1800s, okay? All right, can these winner-take-all laws be changed? You betcha, okay? They can be changed in exactly the same way that they were enacted. They can be, just changed or repealed. So look at some of the other examples. We used to elect senators by the state legislatures, okay? And now they are popularly elected, okay? Everybody, hopefully, legal women voters, we know that, there was a long, hard battle to get the vote for women. And hopefully, down at the bottom, a direct election of the president by popular vote is what we hope for. And like I said, you have a copy of the bill so that you can read it at your leisure when you have a moment to do that. All right, so what will it look like once national popular vote is enacted? First of all, because we see that there is greater voter activity in the battleground states. Remember, they're getting all the campaign visits, right? So there's more hoopla going on. So the flyover states, the spectator states, do not have, remember they're comparing them to those flyover states. So they don't have as a high a voter turnout as the battleground states do. So what we expect to see is increased voter participation, which is exactly what we want for the electorate in this country. We want everybody to participate. The second thing is that when we have this chaos that I referred to earlier in a particular battleground state, usually the differences in the voter count is in the thousands. It's 9,000, maybe 10,000 votes, okay? So there's all this, stomping of feet and, fist waving and, being angry about that. Whereas the differences, the average difference for the popular vote, the national popular vote over the last, I believe, 5 elections, the difference has been in the millions, okay? So it's at least a 4 million difference. Right, so you might have a disgruntled candidate that would try to have a lawsuit about a difference of 8,000 votes. But when we're talking about 4 million votes, it's like, that's pretty clear. There was a difference. It's done, it's cut and dried. There's a candidate for president that's clear of controversy. The third thing, candidates will campaign, in all 50 states, not just in the battleground states. And you might say, well, gosh, can they really do that? Can they get that done? If you count up the number of campaign visits that were done just in the battleground states, yes, they can absolutely get that done. And some of the different candidates that I've heard speak, they're basically saying, well, I don't care how we do it, I just need to know how we're doing it so I can plan my strategy to campaign. That's all they need to know. Am I campaigning all 50 or just the battlegrounds? All right. The fourth thing, candidates will move toward the middle on policy issues. Now, we know right now, especially before the primaries, what happens. People are either way to the left or way to the right. They're trying to get attention and, get media attention from having their policies, generate controversy. But when you have to appeal to all, I want to say 300,000, but some of those are children, Americans, 300 million. So anyway, I don't know what the electorate is in the United States, but when you have to appeal to all of the people across the country, it makes a lot more sense to have your positions more centered, because that's where most Americans are, more toward the center of the political spectrum. So that means we will have less divisiveness in our political campaigning. All right. And the candidates they won't be able to rely like they did. They won't be able to ignore those flyover states, because now everybody's vote is going into the pool, the general pool for the national vote. All right, I love this one that I have in blue here. No voter will have their vote canceled out at the state level. This is where I feel disenfranchised. If the candidate that I voted for does not win my electoral votes in Florida, I feel just depressed, really. Excuse me, I feel a little bit down, and it's like, gosh darn it, I feel like my vote didn't matter. But in this case, once NPV is enacted, then the votes will all, oh, thank you very much. Okay, I brought my water somewhere. It's right there. Good. I'm afraid I'll spill it up there. Okay. Okay. So, so every voter in every state will be politically politically relevant in every presidential campaign because their vote will not be canceled out at the state level. They will go into the big pool, all right, of their, for their candidate of choice. And yes, their candidate of choice might still not win, okay, but it is a better situation. All right, so what's the current status of national popular vote? The bill was written in 2006, and we are here in 2023. The last state to have passed it was Minnesota with 10 electoral college votes, and that happened this summer, right? So 16 states and the District of Columbia have passed national popular vote for a total of 205 electoral college votes. And if you know, the electoral college consists of 538 votes, so more than half of that is 270, so just 65 more to go, all right? So let's unpack this map just a little bit. So green indicates that it's been enacted into law. So you can see the states here, you can see the states up in the Northeast, all right, also Illinois, Colorado, New Mexico, and last, Minnesota, right? Orange indicates passage by one legislative, say that fast 4 times, chamber. Okay, so this is all of the orange here. The next possible one, and I just, in reading my email, just found out maybe a week ago that the vote has been delayed in Michigan. Now you can see Michigan would be wonderful, 15 electoral college votes, we would love to have that. So any of you who like to do phone banking, if you look on your table, you will see that I have put some of my business cards from Floridians for National Popular Vote, and it has my email and my phone number. And if you are interested in doing that, any phone banking, please give me a call or send me an email, and I'll be happy to connect you with the folks to do that. Maine is also a distinct possibility, but they are still in process, okay? And the other orange ones are at different levels. So again, they have passed it in one legislative chamber, either their House of Representatives or their Senate has passed it. All right, yellow indicates it's only Nevada, indicates passage by both chambers. They sent it to the governor. He did not sign it for some unrelated, greedy economic reasons, okay? So they are sending it out to the public. They are putting it in a referendum, and that will happen, I believe, at the same time as the general election in November. So fingers crossed, we hope that that goes forward. All right, blue indicates a hearing. Now we're not talking about passage, we're just talking about was the bill heard. Okay, so you can see all the blue states where it has been heard in one legislative chamber. And then we get to Florida, where we are gray, which means it has not been heard ever, despite the fact that it has been introduced every year since 2017. So, this is why Floridians for National Popular Vote has come into being. I have one more little piece. Yeah. So if Michigan and Maine pass it, then we're at 224, only 46 more to go. But that's it. That's pie in the sky at the moment, okay? But what we are doing, Floridians for National Popular Vote, is, as a matter of fact, I'm going to Tallahassee in about 2 weeks with a group of people. We're having a lunch and learn with a whole group of representatives. And, and the bill has already, I'll show you on the next slide, our Representative Gottlieb has already filed it for 2024 session. We now have a number, House Bill 67, and we're waiting for Senator Tories to file it, so we don't know that number yet. And we know probably which committee it's going to, but of course we have to wait to see which committee. And then once we know that and we know which people are on the committees, then they will get lots of visits from us. Okay? Because we would like for the bill to at least be heard. You know, we're fairly confident that it's probably not going to pass in Florida this session, given that it's never even been heard. All right, but we want to at least get that far. We want to do a lot of the education. Whoopsie doodle, I went too far. Let's see, I need to go back. I clicked it more than once. Okay.
You're back.
Yeah, okay, good. I wanted to be sure that I didn't go past it. No, not that. Some people, I've had the question before when I've spoken, it's like, why not just amend the US Constitution? Well, no, I'm not a constitutional scholar like Deanna's husband, not, far from it. But amending the Constitution is a very difficult process. I won't read all of that, but you can see it basically means that 2/3 of both the House of Representatives and the Senate have to agree. And like a friend of mine says, she goes, I'm not even sure 2 of them could agree on what time of day it is. So getting everybody to agree on amending the Constitution would be a very difficult process. So National Popular Vote Bill does not amend the Constitution. It is constitutionally conservative, right? All it does is it at the state level, and states' rights, and states have the right to say how electors are going to go. It says that the electors will not go for the popular vote in that state, but will watch for the nationwide popular vote. So that's all that it does. Exciting and new. Both of the things I'm going to show you have happened this week. Look at when that poll was dated. Monday, September the 25th. All right, a new, and everybody's heard of Pew Research. I guess they're a corporation. I really don't know. Anyway, so, but they did a new poll. We are now up to 65% of adults in the United States that would like to see the president elected by national popular vote, right? So it's been sort of inching along and going up. So we're now almost at 2/3. Good stuff. All right. And then closer to home, as I stated, more exciting and new, Representative Michael Gottlieb, he sponsored the bill last session in 2023 and will sponsor it, has sponsored it again in 2024. And you can see we have a bill number, HB 67. Senator Torres also he sponsored it for several years now, and he will sponsor again for the Senate. We're awaiting that bill number and also watching for which committee it will go to. All right, so what can I do? What are the options? So first of all, that is the website, and I have that for you on your handout so that you can go there. There's plenty of information on there. We have a gentleman in our group who is not only has a history as an attorney, but he is a whiz with technology. So he has redone the website, and it is looking pretty darn good. So have at it. All right. Certainly, if you feel that this is a good thing, that you would like to see the National Popular Vote Bill passed in Florida, please do email your legislators. I have just come from a visit this morning with my representative, and last week I met with the senator, which I think most of you share since we're all in Seminole County, Senator Jason Broder. So I met with him. We had a good conversation. He was pretty staunchly not in favor of this bill, and we laughed together at the end. I said, well, I guess based on this conversation, it says that you're not going to co-sponsor for this bill. And he laughed and he said, well, I get it that you would have to ask. You don't get it unless you ask. He said, but you're right. No, I'm not going to co-sponsor. So, but we had a good conversation, and they are supposed to represent the people in their district. So if he gets a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls asking about national popular vote,
one would hope that he would consider representing the people in his district, okay? All right, so anyway, email your legislators. The next thing is from Floridians for NPV, you can get their newsletter if that's something that you would like to read about. That is obviously free for you to do. You can become a member. That would not be free, but but your other options there. Come on, next one. All right, whoopsie doodle. All right, you can schedule for the other groups that you might be in other than League of Women Voters. If you have a group that is looking for a speaker, do not hesitate. It's not just myself in Seminole County, there's a couple of other people. So I'm sure that we can, and we have plenty of people in Orange County that are also able and willing to speak on National Popular Vote. So you could schedule a speaker, and please, please, please share this information that you've learned today with your friends and neighbors, because the more people are educated about it, the better, because a lot of people think it's something other than what it is. You know, they think we need to change the Constitution. They think it's getting rid of the Electoral College. They think lots of different things. So be sure and educate your friends and neighbors. It only takes a few minutes, and it will make a difference. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you very kindly, and we'll now open for questions.
Although it won't happen, you know, in the next year or two, but if Florida remains not a battleground state, do you think that there'd be more interest because they won't have that, oh, we are so important in the election?
I do think so, and that is actually one of our kind of secondary talking points when we talk with the legislators, especially if we have the time and if we, you know, can make it past the bang, bang, bang states' rights, you know, thing, okay? But we talk about the fact that you know, Florida's going to be behind the wave. Look, we've only got 65 more to go, and I know you didn't have a chance to add up all of those oranges there, the ones that it's already passed one chamber. That's more than 65 votes there.
Weren't you doing? I'm like,
Yeah, right.
I added enough to know it was more, but I quit.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a little reaching to say that all of them would enact it. But if they did, we'd be there. And Florida would be just out in the dust. So that's one of the, yes, that's exactly one of the things. It's like, you know, you're used to Florida being so, you know, big and bold in the political situation. It's like, honey, not anymore. Yes, Autumn.
is it possible to put this on referendum? You mentioned that one state is going toward referendum. Do we have to go through our Congress?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I do not, okay. But it's certainly something to look into. I guess we would have to do the petitions like we're doing with, yeah, so that's a thought. Yes, Anna.
With Florida, which is one of our priorities, of course, is election reform. Are we
Yes.
taking a stand on this?
Well, how do I say that? You mean as League of Women Voters?
Right, yes.
Okay, so the League of Women Voters of Florida recognizes this, and the League of Women Voters US recognizes this, and it is, it's not one of the main priorities, but it is definitely a secondary priority.
No, under that umbrella of.
Yeah, it's under that umbrella of election reform. Yeah, you're exactly right.
But they aren't pushing it.
Well, how can I say this? Kathy, yes, go for it.
There are more pressing issues under election reform and that are taking the time. And so it's been not lumped into that, and it's been its own separate issue, National Popular Vote. But you're correct. It's just that there are so many issues in the other sphere that are taking up time and effort.
Thank you. She said it much better than I did. Robin, and then we'll go across.
So Valerie, when you're talking with people, what unintended consequences do they bring up that you have to counter? Because I feel certain that there are some.
It's mostly the myths, some of which I touched on. It's this, one of the things that comes up is that they say, oh, well, the Electoral College was designed to make sure that the small states can stand up. And when you look at the numbers, that just evaporates. It doesn't make sense. You know, we're talking about one vote, one person, everybody equal. And I don't know if you can read my button, you know, it says every vote equal, okay? Because right now, the battleground states have an outsized power in their vote, right? And so we want it equal.
Well, the
So-
reason I asked is because just recently I had a discussion about it with somebody who actually lives in my house. And the argument was, so then New York and California are going to decide because they've got the largest populations and, you know, therefore, but I would think it would, you could say their voter turnout may not be, you know, and what the motivation would be to get voters to turn out, right?
So if you look at the actual population, and this statistic I know, if you look at the rural communities, because this is what people say, oh, the rural communities are going to get blasted by the big cities. It's not true, because the actual numbers of the rural communities are about the same. I mean, it's, you know, rural communities is a big area compared to the big cities. So it's about the same. And we're putting them in the same pool. So they're not getting left out by any matter of means. Okay. Right. Yes, ma'am. And I'm sorry, Jean, was it?
Polly,
Polly. Okay, got it.
why did you opt for basing the division on national popular vote rather than state popular vote?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, right now, like Floridians' votes are going to be split based on the election of the entire country. Whereas,
Yeah.
okay, right now the vote of Florida decides our electors.
Yeah.
So why isn't it the popular vote of Florida picking our electors?
That's the way it is right now.
That's what.
No, but it's winner takes all. Electors will go away. That's what she doesn't.
No, I think I understand what you're saying, like, so
I mean,
let's
there's
say.
winners take all states where they get all the electors, right?
Right, but instead of winners take all, if it was proportional, why wouldn't you do it that way, where each state's electors would be awarded proportional to the vote in that state, as opposed to,
Winner take all.
Because then you have to make all the states agree to winner take all goes away.
well, you.
Yeah, so that would be a different bill.
Okay.
Okay, but truthfully, if I'm understanding what you're asking and responding appropriately, and I hope so, national popular vote would provide that proportional, because
Not
let's,
necessarily, because if the vote in Florida is 50-50 and the vote national is 60-40, then we're actually going to send additional people to one side that our state chose.
That's right, you're correct.
I like that.
Okay.
I want my state to vote for my electors, as is the intention of the Constitution.
That's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution.
elections are.
Oh, you mean the
elections are
state
chosen by the state.
Constitution?
Yeah, well.
Okay.
You know, I want enough of that state's rights.
Okay, yes, and that is the what do I say, the discussion that has ensued with the senator and with the representative. They are in the same camp that you are, and they want to keep it the same, basically. Okay, so they're not in favor of national popular vote. And you know, that's one of the benefits of living in this country, is that we can all have our own opinion. Okay, but in my worldview, or I should say national view, okay, it makes so much sense to have my vote be in the national pool, because now any state, any person in any state is not being held back, any person in any state that's enacted the national popular vote is not being held back should their state vote for their candidate that they didn't want. All right, so I'm going into the national pool. Right, and now my candidate might still not win in the national pool, right? And that's just the way the cookie crumbles, okay? But I feel like I have a better chance, and I feel like the national office should be elected by national vote, not by this state here and that state here and that state here as the battleground states. 20%, only 20% of the people in this country are making that final decision on our president.
And getting to Polly's point though, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what the math would be, but I would venture to guess that if you had true proportionality through all 50 states, it would be the same. If, you know, so if we had 50-50 in Florida, and so 15 electors go for one person and 15 for another, you're going to have different splits in other states, and you're going to get to that 270, whether you say national popular vote and just go by popular vote, or whether
Yeah,
you do it
and my
on the-
question is more Bill's strategy point, okay? Whereas you put this national spin on it instead of approaching the legislators to push for proportional division and breaking away from
winner take all.
winner take all. And, you know, I was wondering more about the strategy behind making that the decision for this movement.
Yeah. Well, to answer that question fully, I guess you'd have to talk with the man who authored the bill, and that's John Koza. Okay? So why he went that way, you know, is a
Check out
good
the website,
question.
maybe it's on there.
Maybe,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Why not just get rid of the electoral
Because that requires a constitutional amendment,
And this does not.
and this does not. This is constitutionally conservative. U.S. constitutionally conservative. Right. Yes, ma'am.
I understand that even the states that have signed on to this already and passed this are waiting until we get to the tipping point where it'll make a difference in the national election.
Right. Yeah. The bill itself says it will not come into play until we hit the 270.
So this is a question I asked you a few minutes ago, but the states that have actually passed this, the way people are ignoring their commitments these days, I keep wondering if it actually came down to it, and their state voted one way and the national popular vote went the other way, would they just say, well, you know, we didn't mean it.
Oops, we don't want to play anymore. We want to take our toys and go home. Yeah, no, and I asked her to continue to ask that question because the answer is really good. And I'm going to I have 2 buttons to give away, so I'm going to give her a button because she did do that. So what happens is that when the state has signed on, they can withdraw at any time from this interstate compact except for right around the election. So the summer before, it's June or July, I don't remember exactly. So once that hits, like June, July of 2024, they're locked in until the following January. So around the election, they have to stay put, but they could then, you know, stop after that, after inauguration, I think. Yeah. Okay. I think I might have seen one more hand.
I'm
Any
just
other
curious
questions?
why they decided on the 2 legislators that they chose to sponsor the bill. Because Senator Torres is timed out, this is his last go.
He is, my understanding is that his wife is going to run for his seat. Yeah. So.
He's got some
And
good
she-
opposition.
And she's very strong with the League of Women Voters, so we'll see, and you know, you don't count your chickens until they're hatched, that's for sure. But it's also that it hasn't been a priority for the Florida legislature, so finding someone who was going to be solid in sponsoring it was also hard. Okay, so that's part of the answer. All right, any other questions?
This back to, I'll pass that back to Robin. And if you have any questions, please let her know. So here are quickly what's happening in the league. So first of all, there are meetings, lots and lots of meetings, and when you go to the league website, sign in as a member and you'll see those. On October 12th, we're going to the health department for a tour. On October 16th, we have a Zoom forum with a physician and Amy Weintraub talking about what's happening in reproductive health care in our state. And we are still awaiting the Supreme Court's decision, the state Supreme Court's decision on the 15-week abortion ban, which is currently the law. But if they strike that down, then in 30 days, it will automatically become 6 weeks. And that event will have severe consequences to women's health, and not just women's health in this state. So, we're back to the health department tour. We're also going to, I'm a big on the gun violence prevention team, and I'm the chair of that as well. But the opioid crisis in our country is horrendous, and it is happening in our communities. I think the last statistic I heard was like through July there had been 59 opiate deaths in the county. And so now Narcan is available over the counter, and part of what we do when we go on that tour with the health department is we're going to find out what their strategies are, how they're using it, and it really is, it's almost to the point where you need to have Narcan in your home just like you have a fire extinguisher. Because when you need it, and you need it right away. Oh, we're back to the health department. Isn't that wonderful? And reproductive health. So that, you'll find more information on the website for that. Table Talk. And here, this is Katie Murphy. So Table Talk is a very interesting concept from the Central Florida Foundation. They said, wouldn't it be amazing? We get hundreds and hundreds of people together all on the same day in small groups, 6 to 10 people at a table, to talk about some of the major issues affecting our world. And so you can go to the Central Florida Foundation and click on Table Talk, and you can join a table. They have tables in the 6 counties around. The ones in Seminole County, one happens to be from Hollerback, and forget the other.
The other one's in a group on Ronald Reagan that does tiny homes.
Right, and so they're talking about affordable housing at the tiny homes one, and they're talking about economic stability at the Hollerback ones. But we could have our own table and talk about, a different topic. There are about 5 or 6 different topics, and it's really quite an interesting prospect. Go ahead, Kate.
And at the end of it, people are going to turn in their evaluations and anything that they came up with at their small table, like, ooh, wouldn't it be neat if we? And the foundation is going to be looking at that. The Central Florida Foundation, which is a coalition of all the foundations, is going to be looking at that and handing out mini grants to get things started.
Right. So it is with a purpose, and getting into those small group conversations, you really can hear each other, and the synergy is just incredible. So that's Table Talk. And Katie is our social justice chair, and she has more information. So we talk a lot about Seminole County. Our county government is a charter government. And part of our Seminole County charter is that every 6 years it needs to be reviewed by a commission appointed by the county commissioners. And proposals generated from that commission will then be put on the ballot in November as amendments to our charter. So knowing that this was happening, we as a league had a small group already meeting with Marilyn Crotty, who is the whiz on charter government. And they already came up with some proposals that they want to present to the Charter Commission. And there are 15 members of that Charter Commission, and we have 2 league members. Marilyn was appointed, as well as Robin Dellinger were appointed. So their work will begin next week. They meet twice a month for the next few months. But Marilyn and Darren Gray, who is the county manager, will be providing a community forum on October 22nd at 2 p.m. at the Sanford Public Library, the Seminole County Public Library in Sanford, to talk about what is the charter and how this works, and and what are the options, and kind of give some history and some ways that people in the community can be involved. This is part of our education for the community that we do. So I'm gonna get past that. You'll see, and Darren Gray is a new county manager for us, but he's worked in other charter counties. Our next hot topic is the fourth Thursday in October, and we will have a speaker, Kelly Welch, who is the director of the Seminole County Health Services, not the Department of Health. We have the Department of Health, that's where we're going to go tour, but Seminole County has health services, and they have recently done a study of what is the status of health services in Seminole County. She'll be talking about that, talking about what they're doing to work towards improving health in Seminole County, how they're partnering, what they're doing. It's going to be an amazing, informative session. I have talked with her a couple of times, and she is really, and we'll also have a community health worker, Lydia, talk about being on the ground and the kinds of things that she has. Our delegation will meet on Monday, October 30th, before they go off to Tallahassee. It's an opportunity for community members and organizations to provide input to our legislative delegation, share what our priorities are, share our passions. It's always a very informative meeting, and so that will be Monday morning, October 30th at 9 o'clock. And after that, in the evening, you can go to Deanna Schott's Spooktacular Voter Services Halloween event to test your supernatural powers at getting people to vote and to register to vote. So there'll be more information about that as well. And then there's only one real contested election coming up on the local level in November, and that is the mayoral race in Oviedo. They have 3 candidates, and all 3 have agreed to a forum, and now it's just a matter of we have to get that scheduled.
A debate.
A debate, not
Yes,
a forum,
yes.
okay? A debate, not a forum. But anyway, that will be probably at the end of October, like, 10 days before the election. It's just, until they finished and closed out the qualifications, you couldn't really get going. So we are working on that. So if you're in the Oviedo area, please see Deanna, because she is trying to find place and time and all that kind of good stuff. Are there any other, yes, Katie?
Social justice meeting is going to be the 4th of October at 7 o'clock online.
4th of October, so that's a Wednesday.
Right.
Wednesday, the 4th of October at 7 o'clock on Zoom.
And we'll see what date works for people.
Right. So now, the best thing I have got to say all day is, please go have cake.
Meat cake.